Selvaraaju Murugesan received the B degree in Mechatronics Engineering, and he is also a gold medalist from Anna University in the year 2004 and M.E degree from LaTrobe University, Australia in the year 2008. He has received his Ph.D. degree in Computational Mathematics, LaTrobe University. He worked as Senior Director of Innovation, Data and Analytics at Transport Canberra and City Service Directorate of ACT Government. He was responsible for the implementation of the data management practices and delivering analytics functions to the internal business units to help them achieve the organizational goals. His interests are in the area of business strategy and data analytics. He is working as a data strategist at SaaS Start-up. Thank you. Now I request the speaker to take over the session.
Selva, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me share my screen,
please.
I guess able to see my presentation.
Visible, sir.
Yeah, excellent. Look, by the end of the talk, I will actually share the link to the slides. You can actually download the slides, and it is free to use. If you could see on the right the bottom right corner, I usually release it by CC by license, which is the open source slide. So yeah, welcome to this presentation. So I'll just give you a bit of outline in terms of what I'm going to cover. The first session will be mostly on introduction to data. I believe that data is part of one of your subjects in your MBA, but I'll give you my spin on it. And then probably I'll move some use cases and especially some case studies of how companies actually use data to change their business model, okay, which is very relevant to the MBA students. And then I'll introduce in the second session, what do you mean by intelligence and how business are actually using it. And third, I'll talk about how the data and intelligence being leveraged for around the globe for business improvements. Okay, let's kick in. So before I begin, I just want to start with the definitions of what do you mean by data. Okay, it is very common. You see all this. You get into this data field by actually pondering upon some Excel spreadsheet. Most of the time, when you go into the organization, they'll give you an Excel spreadsheet and ask you to analyze. But having said that, you have less understanding of what do you mean by data. You have solid understanding. So the basic definition of data is it's representation of facts. In fact, I shouldn't say facts, it's representation of agreed facts that someone has to agree on. To give you an example, I've been introduced as Selvaraaju Murugesan. How do you know that that's my real name? Correct? So there's no way to know that's a real name until there's a third party that comes in and say, you know what, I certify you, your name was given by your parents and it is being recognized in the government gazette, and then now I recognize you by that name. Okay, so that's why there's a third party, and then there's been agreement between a lot of people. Okay, so that's why it's agreed facts. Okay, sometimes data is also based on quantification of some phenomenon. Okay, for example, we go and measure temperature, pressures. We send status messages about what we do. They're all phenomenon. Okay. So the data comes in the multi-facets. The data can be text, or it could be numbers, it could be pictures, it could be videos, it could be anything. So this one culminates the wide kind of a spectrum of what data means. Okay. So now, if you could just type in the chat about the device I'm actually holding. Can actually anybody see what this device I'm actually holding? I don't know how many of you might not be born to actually see this device. Sorry?
The floppy disk.
Yeah, it is a floppy disk. Somebody actually put it on a chat. Yeah, it's a floppy disk. Excellent definition. All right. So my next question to you is, what's the capacity of this standard 3.5 inch? Can actually anybody tell me? Look, I've got a couple of floppy
You can
disks.
put this 3.5 inch in your S.
Yeah, correct. So can anybody put in the chat window what's the actual size of this one of this? How much memory that it actually holds? Don't Google it. I know you're very smart people. You have Google at your hand. Few MBs. All right. How many? To be specific. Yeah. So that's the device. Anyone? All right. So I'll give you an answer. You can actually read it from the top. This device actually holds 1.44 megabytes. Okay. Let me show it to the screen.
Yeah, visible.
Yeah, so this is actually 1.44 megabytes. And if you look at it, I had boxes of it. Okay, I had boxes of this. I used to buy this like crazy when I was a teenager, and this is the era I was born. Okay, so 1.4 megabytes is the storage capacity of the device. And the interesting bit about this floppy disk is that if you want to install Microsoft Office on your laptop or a desktop, you need to have 20 of these, okay, 20 floppy disks, and each floppy disk has to be inserted sequentially, okay, 1, 2, and 3. If you insert in the wrong wise, in a different order, it might not install, okay, and this device used to hold 5 Tamil albums, okay, the MP3 was introduced, and it's used to hold 5 MP3 albums, and we used to listen to all this music in a device called Winamp. I know for many of you, you'll be wondering, like, why is it so relevant? Okay, if you look at it, if you fast forward it a little bit right now, you can't even take a picture which is of 1.4 megabytes. Okay, the minimum size your phones, your Android phones and Apple phones actually support is close to 6 or 7 MB. Okay, so what really happened over years was this massive data growth. Okay, so there is a massive data growth in terms of how we actually produce content and how we actually consume content as well. And if you look at from 2010, this goes a little bit beyond. Before that, there's a dot-com boom, and I'll just start from 2010. And if you fast forward right now, if you look at the data growth, it's actually accelerating. It looks like a linear curve, but it's actually an exponential curve. You won't know it until a certain inflection point where the trend actually changes. Okay, and if you look at it in 2020, we are talking about 40 to 50 zettabytes of data. Okay, Netflix alone consumes about 20 to 30% of bandwidth around the world. Okay, they actually consume about 1 petabyte of data. They create 1 petabyte of data, and I believe that at least 40 to 50% of the data is thrown away. Okay, at the end of the day, they process the data and then store it. So the data growth is accelerating. There's no stopping from it. Okay, so what's actually causing this data to grow at this exponential pace? So there are 3 main factors. The first one is compute power. I still used to have this Pentium 4 processor, which was the first desktop computer I've actually bought. It was a Pentium 4. It has an amazing compute power of 1.8 megahertz. Okay, which you never heard of because you are in gigahertz world. Okay, and it comes with an amazing 128 megabytes of RAM. Okay, and I was like, wow, 128 megabytes of RAM. I can do some crazy stuff. But guess what? Your iPhone or even your phone holds close to like 6 GB of RAM. Okay, I'm talking about 120 megabytes of RAM, which is like tiny. So if you look at the way the technology actually evolved, the computing power actually is evolving. Thanks to Moore's law, the compute power is actually doubling in its every 12 to 18 months. The next important thing is internet speed. During my age, we used to have this dial-up modems where you have to plug in your phone cable to the backside of your CPU, and you need to dial in, okay? And after a lot of tries, it connects to the internet with an amazing speed of 128 kilobits per second. 128 kilobits per second. So right now, you never heard of such things because the technology is so evolved. You're talking about at least 512 megabits, correct? At least a broadband. In your mobile broadband, probably you're talking about at least 5 to 10 megabits per second, okay? So that has actually changed. The main important factor in this data growth is the smartphone. When Nokia introduced their first phones, it was all about connecting people. Now it's not about connecting people, it's all about enriching lives. We are actually sharing a lot more rich content in the web, and that is actually fueling this data growth. Okay. All right. So my question to you, feel free to go and type in the chat. What do we do with this massive amount of data, by the way? What do we do with it? It's just an open-ended question. If you could type something in the chat, I am happy to get your views. So as I said, we are actually producing a lot of data. I've actually given you why that is happening. So my question to you is, what do we do with this massive data? Like you're taking so many pictures and you're actually putting it on Instagram, sharing in Facebook. You're also trying to produce videos. You're also trying to do producing a lot of other data. So, okay, Kritik, Kani, you said knowledge is power. Sure. So knowledge is power. How do you use it? Give me one example. To understand consumer behavior. All right. Sure. Analyze the data. Sure. Analyze data for what? What do we do with it? Take decisions. Sure, sir. Yeah. So it's all about decision making, not all about decision making. Now I'll come to that. So if you look at it, I put it on two spectrums. I put it on two different buckets. The first one is for what business are actually using with the data, and let's talk about what's the beneficial for customer, okay, the end users like us. So let's talk about business. So the business, they use data to make something called money. All right. So everybody knows it. In fact, the capitalist word, they loves it. There is a famous Tamil quote. I want to quote here. It says, "Illa kallane aanalum கைப்பொருள் ஒன்று உண்டெனில் எல்லோரும் சென்று அவனை எதிர்கொள்வர். இல்லானை இல்லாலும் வேண்டாள். ஈன்றெடுத்த தாயும் வேண்டாள். செல்லாது அவன் வாய்ச்சொல்." This means even if you are illiterate, okay, if you have money, what people will do? They'll welcome you like with a red carpet welcome, correct? So that's the power of money. The second thing is, if you don't have money, your wife won't. Your wife won't like you. Your mother won't believe you. Even if you say 1,000 explanation excuses, guess what? Those are useless. It's an amazing quote which was written by the Tamil literature long ago. Okay, so every capitalistic love money, and guess what? Businesses are always focused on making money. Okay, even though their greater goal is bigger than money, but I'm actually focusing on just money here. Okay, so in terms of using data, they really want to make money. Okay, but how do they make money? By pitching two things. First one is they can build new products using data they have with the current product. They can actually understand, analyze, understand the customer behavior, understand the gaps in the current product, and they will build a better product. Okay, so that's the first thing that business will do. The second thing the business will do is they will come up with new services. They will offer you a lot of value-added services. Okay, I'll give you a prime example. You might have heard Airtel, the telecom provider. If you look at it, they started as a telecom provider, but right now they are in media business. Okay, they provide a lot of rich content. If you look at it, they are into broadband business. They have some kind of subscription model to watch movies. They're in streaming business. And more importantly, if you look at it, one of the new services they actually introduced is called Airtel Black. They look at this thing. Why my customers having subscribed to Airtel are actually in different kind of channels and segments? I can't get a holistic view of the customer. And sometimes when the customer complains, I don't understand their problems they faced 2 months ago with other kind of subscription with Airtel. So they combine everything. They come up with a new subscription model called Airtel Black. Guess what? Everything is underpinned by data. Okay. So next main important thing, I know many of you are a fan of Netflix or at least Amazon Prime. So let me give you an example of how Netflix actually flipped their business with data. Okay. Some of you might know that Netflix is actually a DVD renting business company. Okay, you can actually Google it. It's used to rent DVDs, and it was the biggest competitor for another company called Blockbusters. They also used to do rent DVDs. And what Netflix were actually looking at is this: they were actually monitoring 3 data points. Okay, they were actually looking at 3 data points during their growth period. The first one was the number of broadband connections in America. Okay, they have a chart, then they actually plot the number of connections every week, and they have a data point. Okay, so they're looking at number of broadband customers in America. So that's the first one. The second one was what's the connection speed? Okay, so obviously as the technology grows, the connection speed should also grow. Okay, so that is the second thing they're actually tracking. The third metric they're actually tracking was this mobile penetration. How many people are actually using smartphones? Okay, so they're actually tracking this because they know that this DVD business is no longer viable. They have to give content to people where they are. Okay, in whatever devices people can actually have hands on. Okay, so they're actually tracking trends. At some point in time, there was an inflection metrics in these 3 graphs I've actually told you. And guess what? That's when they pivoted the business. So they said, we will slowly focus on streaming. So they shifted their focus from selling DVDs into streaming. Okay. And it is very, very crucial for the moment. And if you look at it, they're actually dominating the streaming business at the moment. Okay. And guess what? What happened to Netflix? Can anybody tell me what Netflix is? What kind of company Netflix is? It used to be a DVD selling business company. Now they're into streaming. Can you tell, someone can actually put it on the chat, what kind of company that Netflix is currently? Are they still in streaming business? Gaming, yeah, gaming is the next one they're trying to venture. Content creation, yes, sir, that's right. So they no longer want to be in someone who can actually license from 20th Century Fox or Walt Disney. They are no longer want to do that. They really want to be content creators. So they don't want to be producers. So if you look at it, Netflix no longer identify as an entertainment business. In fact, if you go right now, you can actually find Netflix is a production company, just like AVM Studios. Okay, typical. But the power, if you look at it, Netflix has real 2 advantages. First thing is, if you go to theaters, all the traditional production companies, especially in Tamil Nadu, if you look at AVM Studios and they have other big territories, they produce movies and they go and show it in the theaters, correct? But they wouldn't know whether you are a Rajini fan, you are a Vijay fan, and you like science fiction, and you like this heroine, that, okay? The theater owners would not have a clue because they don't have this data. They don't collect this data when they sell tickets to you, okay? But guess what? Netflix has the data on you. If you watched a Will Smith movie and you really liked it and you watch so much science fiction, they know that there's a demand for people in Tamil Nadu who loves Will Smith, and they also like science fiction. And guess what? The next movie that will come out in Netflix, Will Smith with science fiction movie. Okay, brilliant, brilliantly tailored content. Okay. Now, if you look at the next one, I think someone said they're really getting into gaming. Yes, absolutely. So they look at an opportunity where this gaming market is, you have to buy this in-app purchases. There's a lot of ads. It is actually creating, like a lot of distractions, I would say, for the consumers. So what they're actually going is they're going into gaming. If you have Netflix subscription, no problem. You can actually play your games completely ad-free, no in-app purchases. You just enjoy the game whenever you want. Okay, brilliant model, brilliant business model. Okay, and it is added as a value-added services. I'm pretty sure they'll try to make money in the future. Okay, so my next question, open-ended question to you is: Where do you think Netflix is going? They said it's in content production. And next thing you're actually mentioned is gaming. Where do you think Netflix is going in the next 5 years? It's a wild guess. Take a guess. Anyone? Any students? You want to take a guess where the Netflix is going? Okay, look, the answer to the question is we don't know. Seriously, because we don't have the data. Okay, you have to stream data, and there has to be a critical mass. The data has to get, and then you'll understand the patterns and the friendships happening in the consumer content business, consumer behavior, and things like that, and then they'll pivot. Okay, but at the moment, they're actually venturing into gaming. Okay, that's where it is all about. All right, I'll give you another example, another case study. If you look at McDonald's, and you might be wondering, McDonald's is actually into burger business or they are actually not. They are actually a franchise, and in fact, they are in real estate business. McDonald's is in real estate business. They are not in a burger business. They sell burgers based on selling real estate. Okay, it is on the franchise model. Everything you have to buy it from McDonald's, starting from bun to all the way to the burgers and the sauce. Everything is got to buy, but they actually sell real estate to their franchisees. Okay, that's their power of the business model. And they collect a lot of data on where they have to put the next McDonald's. Where's the next bang for the buck. Okay, they do all this analysis. Right? All right, great. So I've actually talked about two case studies, Netflix and McDonald's, in terms of how they actually use data to transform their business model. Meaning, sir, business model, what is good for consumers? All right. So let me give you a pitch. For consumers, the value is in terms of two things. The data business actually helps us to save time. Okay, so the more we share data, it actually saves time, and the more connections we also make, okay, with the world. So what do we do with the time? I don't know. Go and watch Netflix. That's really up to you. But it's more about saving time for us, so that we can spend quality time with doing some activity that is a lot more purposeful for us. Okay, but that's the advantage of for consumers. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're trying to compose an email. If you look at, we have actually produced so many emails, and guess what? Google came up with this. And right now, when you type something, they try to autocomplete. Okay, you don't need to type those words. Just save time. Press tab if that's what you have in your mind. Brilliant, brilliant piece of data-driven technology. Okay. All right, I'll give you another example. Photos. The way we actually used to consume photos, I don't know whether you've actually seen. They call it a standstill camera, like Kodak was one of the main thing. And those cameras were very popular, okay? You have the camera, and you used to have this kind of a roll. They call it film roll. You have to roll it. This was like, guys, this was 20 years ago. I don't know, still somebody's using it. And you got to take a picture first, okay? You can't even preview the picture, okay? That is stored in this film. You take the film after you complete all the 100 pictures you have taken. You take it to a photo studio, and they will take this negative, the film roll is called negative, and then they will develop in the lab. And the next day you print it, okay? And then they'll give you this photo. Guess what? The moment you see these pictures, they'll be an amazing moment, right? Oh my God, I looked like that. Somebody, there was a blur in the picture. They didn't capture this. There's a lot of amazing conversation goes on. But guess what? These days, those things don't happen. You take your phone, and you take a selfie with this one, and the moment it gets to Instagram, and you get 1,000 likes or something, and you get depressed if you get 1 like and you remove this photo. Okay, it happens. I think the millennial culture you have, I think it happens. And the moment you share, it's shared in Facebook, it's shared in WhatsApp. You have immediate conversations with these people. Okay, if you look at it for consumers, it's beneficial. Okay, when I was in Australia, WhatsApp was the main technology I used. I used to stream videos, and I used to connect with my family. It actually helped me bring that connection. Okay, so there's a good thing about the technology. Okay, for consumers. So what I'm trying to say is, data is the new currency. whether you have dollars in your bank balance or not, if you have data in your cloud storage, sure, that's the new currency now. Okay. And the other interesting fact I can give you is Facebook is now worth more than an oil company. ExxonMobil is one of the biggest oil companies around the world. And guess what? Facebook in market evaluation is much worse than worth than ExxonMobil. Okay, that's the power of data. The more you culminate over a period of time, it becomes a powerful resource. You can actually use it. And I've given you 2 examples for a business to how they use it. All right. So before I move on to intelligence, do you have any questions for me? Any questions for data? What do you mean by data? How you use it? Any questions? I actually unmute and chat, or you can actually put it on the chat.
Okay. Selva, of course, as you rightly pointed out, it's an abundance. Am I right? The data is an abundance. Don't you think it creates a sort of a state where you cannot arrive at any decision with the data, the volume of data which you have?
Oh, sir, yeah. Look, the data abundance is good. So you have a lot more things at your disposal. I don't think it is, at some institution, it is causing analysis paralysis, as you rightly said. We have so much data, data is telling you different stories. You're not able to understand what the nuances behind the data. But that's when you need experts like data scientists and a lot of people who are very good in this field. Get all the data, process the data, synthesize what the insights are, and then give you the right business insights.
Okay.
All right. Somebody have, is sharing data good or bad? Wow. The philosophical question. It's good or bad, it's really up to you. Okay. In fact, if you're sharing data, for example, I share data with Google. Okay, for example, Gmail, I share a lot of data with Google. Guess what? I get Gmail as a free service. I don't pay for that email account. Correct? None of us pay for email account. So that's the thing. If you want to trade your data for some services, which are usually added as a free, sure, you can actually avail it. But the moment it comes with intruding your life, privacy issues, then you got to be really careful. They collect a lot of data. The moment you tick that box saying I agree to your terms and conditions without even understanding what kind of data they collect on you, have on you, yeah, you're missing out. Okay, I'm going to be extremely careful in this age. Look, that deserves a one-day workshop on data ethics and privacy. Okay? I won't go into that, but it's a very good question, Kritik. Definitely, you got to look at the value proposition. How much data I'm trying to give it to these companies, and what's the value proposition? What's the value I get as a consumer? And it is worthwhile to do so. Okay. So,
sir, I have a question.
Sure,
sir. Is data cause for attritions in big organizations today?
Sorry, sir. I didn't get you.
Is it too much of data leading to attritions in organizations today?
Look, when you say attrition, are you talking about people leaving the organization?
People leaving the organizations, teams becoming vulnerable, teams keep changing, teams not sticking to organizations.
No, I think. Look, if the more data is available, probably somebody might leave the company to find a new business. That might happen, but I don't see that much happening often in terms of attrition. People leave company for different reasons, probably not for data as such, because data is a different dimension of data is usually associated with products and services of how those things actually generate data. If people are having a lot of data, they might leave for another organization because they become a good data scientist or something. Sure, that might happen.
Okay. No, the reason I asked is because maybe before data was not that familiar. When you in a sales organization, when you fix a marketing strategy, that strategy may run for even 6 months, 1 year. With too much data available and pumping in data, probably strategies keeps changing and results getting delayed.
Oh yeah. So the way the companies actually use in sales and marketing, especially, is when they set out a strategy, they know where they are and they want to go where they want to go in a couple of years' time or 1 year's time. So they have a strategy, though. So they have a plan to attain that strategy. Data is actually the ones that actually changing the tweak, tactical operations. Okay. As soon as the data come in, or am I on target? What do I need to do differently to achieve my strategic goal? Okay, so that's what the data actually gives you. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say the company, I am in Coimbatore and I want to go to Chennai in 1 year's time. Okay, so my strategy has been set, and there is some resource cost, and there is some funding and budgets. Everything is allocated. Once I start in my national highway, I am getting some data that there is some construction work going on. I have to take a detour. Okay, using the data, you take a detour. So that's what the data actually gives you. So you can actually change your trajectory, change your plan, but to reach that target. Okay, so that's the power of data that most of the organizations are using, especially in sales and marketing. They get into nitty-gritty of how their sales campaign and marketing campaign are performing, and they can actually weekly tweak their campaigns and initiatives.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure. All right. So look, I talked about this data a lot. Let me go into our interesting field. It's called intelligence. Okay. So if you look at it, sure, intelligence is something that makes us smart. Everybody knows that. As a human being, we are not born with intelligence. Okay. A baby that comes out of the womb does not have intelligence. It just got out. All right. So if you look at it, how do we learn? How do we learn from a baby till you become a teenager, where you have a lot more mental capability to actually understand, analyze, synthesize, process a lot of things? Okay, so the way the child actually learns is by experimenting. Okay, and it learns from the environment. Very simple. The baby will look at, let's say, a cat, and it will say dog, but the parents will come and correct, hey, that's not actually a dog, it's actually a cat. And the baby will take into, oh, so the cat has a fur, it's small in size, it has 4 legs, and it tries to get that into the memory, and it actually learns by making steps, then it runs, and it actually happens. Okay, everything around the world, if you look at it retrospectively, we learn by experimentation, and in fact, a lot of things through imitation. And when we get to the point, something called wisdom. Okay, and most of the people in their late 30s and 40s, they have a lot of wisdom. Okay, and it takes time for human being. It really takes time. What computers are actually doing good at is, so they are good at doing repeated things. Okay, repeated jobs. If you ask a vacuum cleaner to vacuum, it will vacuum it forever, as long as you don't run out of electricity. Okay, it's very good at doing repeated jobs, and it also collects data as part of doing the job. Okay, but there is no learning by the machine. I don't think your washing machine can learn. Okay, it's all programmed to wash your clothes. Okay, there's no intelligence behind it. It is not learning, even though it actually produces a lot of data. Okay, so if you look at the traditional way, the computers actually learn. This is the typical system. I'm giving you the logical structure of it. You take a computer system, you feed in the data, and you feed in the program. Guess what? It produces the output. Give you an example. You take washing machine as a system. Okay, it is programmed. You flip a switch, it rinses. You flip a switch, it washes. It does the spin. It does everything. That's the program. What's the data you give? You put some clothes and you add some water and the soaping, the soap powder and stuff like that. That's the data it actually takes. Okay, very, very typical computer system. There's no intelligence to it. It is all programmed. For a human being, as I said, the raw material to our learning is environment, and also by imitation and observation. The raw material for learning for a machine is the data. Without data, it cannot learn. Okay. And there is a bit of a step that a computer needs to go. It's called DIKY pyramid. It stands for data, I stands for knowledge, information, K stands for knowledge, and W stands for wisdom. Okay, and it starts with the data. Okay, I'll give you an example of how it actually goes. So from data, you process the data and it becomes information. You put some context to it, it becomes a knowledge. Okay, the wisdom is more the more contextual information, and it has to observe patterns and trends and things like that. Then you go and hit to the wisdom stage. Okay, for a human being to go through that cycle probably takes 25 years. Okay, for some it might prolong. Okay, 30, 35 years, 40 years they attain this wisdom. But here is the thing that will freak you out. I'll give you this. Bear this in mind. For us, for a human being to go from the zero state to a wisdom state, probably it takes a lot of years. But for a computer, it's just a matter of seconds. If this one doesn't scream, like doesn't make you skeptical, it should. A computer with an amazing compute power, storage, can learn something from data to wisdom within seconds. That is actually an alarming trend. Okay, that's the power of technology at this point in time. Okay, and it can go from nothing to an intelligent state, an artificial intelligence state in no time. Why? Because the data is available in abundance. The computational resources are available in abundance. All the observation as a human being, we culminated, we aggregated, and stored for computer in a machine readable format. Machine can quickly go and pitch in, gain this. Okay, so that's the power. So in human example, I'll give you this example. Let's say you're born as a human being, and let's say you are 5 years old and you go to a field, okay, a farm field, and you ask the boy or the child, hey, is it going to rain today? The child have no clue, okay, whether it's going to rain or not. Then you ask the farmer, who is a lot more wiser and has a lot of wisdom, is it going to rain today? Yes, he will look at the clouds first. Is it the gray, brown, blue? Sure. Then he will look at the wind moisture, and he will look at the wind speed. Then he will tell you with certain probability or confidence that it's going to rain or not. Guess what? To go from a child who know nothing to the state where they can actually predict the weather is the wisdom I'm talking about. It's the intelligence. All right. So let me tell you what an AI, an artificial intelligence system would do. An artificial system, as previously said, a computer system takes data and program, produce an output. But an artificial system, on the other hand, takes the data and takes the output and it produces the program. It's very, very different. Okay. Then what do you do with the program? Very easy. You feed it to the computer system and you take the data. Guess what? It produces the output. Very, very intelligent way of doing things. Okay. Guess what? Everything, every product, everything we buy in the modern age at the moment has this, as an AI system built in. And the thing that alarms the computer is that the learning is continuous and happening at an unprecedented pace. Okay, you can't even imagine. Any local knowledge that you gain from here can be applied somewhere else. So that's the pace that the AI is actually learning. All right. So the next question will be is, how do I use this AI? I have an artificial intelligence which is powered by data. What are the things that they can actually do? So look, don't worry about the underlying part. The AI, in summary, can do three things really, really well. The first one is forecasting. If you give the data, some historical data, and ask us to predict the future data, it can do that with a lot of with different accuracy and different confidence level. Okay, and that is very, very important. Okay, so that's the first thing an artificial intelligence system can do: forecasting. The second thing you actually do is classification. So you give some data, and then you ask us to provide some kind of a model in terms of how you want to classify, and it can actually classify. Okay, you give a lot of pictures about cat and dog, and in the future, if you show something else, it will show you whether it's a cat or a dog. Okay, it's very good at classifying data. Okay, the other one it can do is this called pattern recognition, which is the power of our brain. Our brain always try to find patterns. Even if it's not, it will try to find it. That's how we are biologically architected. We're always trying to find the pattern, even if it's random, it's sure. But for a computer, this is a new thing. If you don't know the underlying underlying data, what kind of classification you need to have, just throw the data at the AI algorithm. It'll come up with a pattern. Okay, it's very good at pattern recognition. It'll come up with some trends and patterns and give you. Okay, sometimes it surprises you. So those are the three main things an artificial intelligence algorithm can do. I've given you in the bottom what kind of algorithms you do. Look, AI is all mathematics. Okay, and those are the one I've given you, regression neural network. They are algorithms, by the way. Okay, for an MBA student, you don't need to know, but understand the high level thing of what an AI can do. Forecasting, classification, pattern recognition. Those are the three main things. Sure. Okay, before I jump in, do you have any questions for me? Any questions in terms of AI? Very high level introduction I've given you. The next one is very interesting. Okay, question. All right. Sure. So let me go into the next section. This is the final section. All right. So how do we leverage this data? How do we leverage the artificial intelligence? Okay, in business, very, very important. The first one, as someone said in the chat earlier, the data are actually used for decision making. Okay, it's no longer, most of the decisions these days are not driven by hunch. People say it's a gut feeling. I get a gut feeling that we should call this or we should spend on this marketing campaign. It's no longer shooting in the dark. People want scientific method. The scientific approach can only be given by data. Okay, and it is very, very powerful tool. And I've given an example earlier that Netflix was actually watching this data trends over a period of time, and they're actually making decisions. Guess what? Right now, even Netflix is purely a data-driven company. What kind of next TV show they have to build? What kind of recommendation things they have to show it to you when you log into Netflix? What kind of things Amazon needs to show you when you bought a product? Okay, it's all data-driven. Recommendation engines, and you have a lot of sales and business forecasting. You talk about budget, you talk about spending, you talk about hiring. Every little thing that happens in the business are all driven by data. Okay? For many companies, for many product companies, they use this data for something called experimentation. They pick up out of a lot of customers they have, they'll pick up a small cohort and they'll experiment with this small cohort. Okay, they will try to learn and they'll also adapt before rolling out to a lot of other customers. Okay, very, very intuitive and very, very scientific proven approach. Okay, in business or in the technology world, it is called A/B testing. Okay, A/B testing. What they do is they will roll out a product feature or some kind of thing to a small cohort of users. They learn from it before actually giving to them, taking it to the mass. Okay, so with the data, you can actually experiment, learn, and then adapt. Okay, so that's the first thing. The prime example, as I shared earlier, was Netflix. With the data, they can actually, let me tell you the example of what they'll do with the data. They will tell you what kind of movies they need to produce, who is going to feature in the movies. Okay, what's the genre? What kind of director should be able to come and pick this? It's all driven by data. Okay. The next thing is, what's the next big indie thing they need to place a bet on? Okay, it's all driven by data. They do a lot of market research. They come up with this. They do that. And the other thing, in the Netflix product itself, if you look at the web interface, the recommendation in terms of what kind of recommended movie they have to show, guess what? It is all personalized. With the data, you can actually personalize and target the content. Okay, if I open up my Netflix and you open up Netflix, it will be different recommendation for us. Okay, with the data, you can actually personalize and target right kind of customers with the right kind of content. Okay, so that's the power of data-driven decisions. The next second topic where data is actually used and AI is used is business risk management. You know, when you operate all this businesses, you have a lot of risks. You've probably seen a lot of risk in your MBA studies, a lot of risk management approaches. You've probably seen a lot of mitigation strategies. What are the things you have to do? But how do you know for a risk an identified risk whether that's an optimal solution or not? Okay, data will help you. Okay, data will actually give you the historical perspective of how this risk has been managed, how it has been mitigated, and they'll also tell you what kind of learnings you can have, and you use that insight for a better risk management. Give me another case study here. So Netflix was actually dominating this live streaming market, and there's a lot of companies who take a look at it. One of the biggest company was Disney. Disney really want to get into streaming business, but there's a business risk. Okay, they're good at content production, but they're not good with the distribution, and they don't know what the market audience and things like that. Guess what? Disney actually used the data they had. Disney had a catalog of so many movies. Okay, Disney is amazing with producing a lot of these kids movies, animation movies, and things like that. And Disney was looking at what's the unique value proposition that actually differentiates me from Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV Plus. They had a unique value proposition. They actually used their data, historical data, to arrive at whether they need to venture into live streaming business. Guess what they did? An amazing thing happened. They are actually number 2 in streaming business. They're actually competing with Netflix. Okay, so they are actually able to use the data they had on the business and use it to manage their risk and venture into new kind of business. Okay. All right. So the third one I can actually give you is people use data and AI for product decisions. What kind of new features they need to build? Okay. What's the feature adoption for this new feature? And they actually use the data to get feedback from the customers. So there is a circular loop. You produce the product, you give it to the customer use, and you get the usage data. And at the same time, you also get the customer feedback data, and you fine tune your product feature over a period of time. It's a cyclic loop that most of the big product companies actually use. One of the prime company they actually use is Dropbox. But let me give you something that is very local to us. Probably we use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is very easy to use. You can share your day-to-day conversation. You can actually share pictures. You can share photos and a lot of things. But there is a new feature they actually introduced. It's called one-time seed. Okay, you've probably seen this one where you try to send. It is available for only one time. Okay, after that it gets deleted automatically. Okay, so right now someone wants to share their Wi-Fi password, and the moment they configure something, once they open it, they really want to delete that. Guess what? WhatsApp actually use the data we currently have, and based on the customer feedback, they actually rolled out this feature. Very, very important for a data-driven company to be using for product enhancement. And the other, probably the good example I can actually tell you is this service delivery. A lot of people go and we are engaging with a lot of customer business for service delivery, correct? We go to courier shop to courier something, or we go to a shop to buy something. We go to a restaurant to eat something. So these are like service business. Most of the service business companies, they use data to reduce the process bottleneck. They understand your business value chain, and they used to find where is the bottleneck that's actually occurring in my business process. And they'll try to use the data to understand that, and if possible, they'll automate the process end to end. Okay. A typical example I can actually give you. This is a government example, by the way. In those days, if you really want to change your name in your Patta or Sitta, okay, which is the government issued certificates for land ownership, you have to go and fill in this 20 forms. Then you take it to somebody, they'll sign. You take it to somebody else, they'll sign. It's a laborious process as well. Now, the government actually, as part of the Digital India movement, now it is all online. No need to go to anywhere. All you do is take, scan, upload. They will process the data digitally, and they will inform you via an SMS or an email. It's all completely streamlined end to end. Okay, now nobody goes to electricity board and then queue up to pay the electricity bill. We used to do, I used to do, but these days nobody does that. You take up your phone, you pay via Amazon Pay. Very, very easy. Okay, and most of the service delivery business will be streamlined using data. Okay, and in India, we are actually seeing that a lot more proliferation of the services delivery business, enterprises. Okay, especially from the government services, they're actually optimizing a lot of service delivery. Look, given the time, I won't go into this much detail, but this is another example I just want to show. If you are trying to forecast, this is what it is. So you are in 2017, you're trying to forecast the sales. Okay, guess what? The computer actually given you how the forecasting will look like. Okay, this is all very accurate. And the good thing about this model is once the new data comes in, it learns, it becomes powerful, it becomes a lot more accurate. Okay, that's the power of all this artificial intelligence algorithms. The other prime example I say is the safety and compliance. If you look at it here, if you really want to look at how many people are actually wearing safety vests, when they're actually wearing helmets, when they're actually doing a lot of frontline operations, and AI can actually do that. Okay, if you look at it, these are all pre-trained models. Okay, the AI actually tells you whether somebody's actually wearing mask, what's the probability, whether actually wearing gloves. These are real-time examples, and you see it's been actually used in real life. Okay, so I've got only 4 slides before I wrap up. So you've seen in my talk, I talk about data, I talk about AI, I've given you some real-time examples of some case studies and stuff like that. As an MBA student, what is the skill set you need to have? You know, the technology is ramping up, but if you go into this like an enterprise or business, you go in as a mid-level managers or even executives. Okay, what are the skills that you need to have? The first skill set you need to have, it has a little more art to it. The first one is you need to have good skill set to actually ask the right question. Okay, the data is there, but only if you ask the right powerful question, somebody will give you the right answers for you. Okay, I would be happy to ask the right question and get an approximate answer rather than asking approximate question and then getting an accurate answer for my question. Okay, so asking the right question should be the good skill set for an MBA student. What's the second thing? Understand the business domain you operate. When you go into different business, for example, retail, insurance, banking, understand the business domain. What kind of terms they use, what kind of data circulates among them, why the data is important, how the data has been generated, and what are the nuances behind those metrics. When people say GDP number, there's a lot of assumptions behind GDP number. Understand that. Okay, as an MBA student, you need to understand the business domain first. Understand the assumptions behind data collection. Understand the nuances. Understand the calculation methodology, how people can fudge the numbers. Okay, those are the things very, very important for an MBA student to actually understand. The third takeaway is understand the nuances. Once you understand the business domain, understand the data nuances are very crucial for you to succeed in business analytics field. The final one is apply the right data to solve right problems. Most of this business people I have met, they have right problem statements, but they're actually applying wrong data, or they're actually applying right kind of synthesis. That actually dilutes this business analytics field. Okay, it's very, very important, which means you need to have domain expertise and also needs to have good mathematical knowledge. Okay, you can actually outsource to somebody in your team, like a data scientist who can do that. But as an MBA student, you need to drive that. Ask the right question, make sure you get the different data, you get the different perspective, you understand why the data is telling this, what it is telling, is there any kind of error between data collection, those things you need to understand. Okay, look, that's pretty much I've got. Do you have any questions? I will actually put a link in the, if you really want to upload, get my presentation. So okay, so if you go to the chat, I actually put a link to my PowerPoint. you can actually download my presentation, as I said earlier. That's pretty much I've got open for some question and answers, some discussions. If you want, you can actually unmute and then talk, or you can actually put it on the chat. Either way, I'm happy with answering your questions.
Shiraman, you can keep it open.
Yes, sir. Participants, you can raise your hand so that I will unmute yourself. Yes, Kaushika, you can ask your question.
There is a question in the chat box too.
Yes,
Selva.
Yeah, sure, sir. I'll do that. But Kaushika,
Right.
Kaushika,
Right.
yes.
Kaushika, you are on mute.
Kaushika, wait. Yeah, Kaushika.
Myself, Kaushika, first MBA student at DJME. Sir, my question is, what are the technical skills that a business analyst must possess?
Okay, so cool. So I'll answer that. So for a business analyst, they need to have a good understanding about business requirement. Okay, so they need to, the first skill set they need to have is good communication, good stakeholder management skills. Okay, so that's the main important thing about a business analyst. So if you look at the primary role of a business analyst, they're actually involved in gathering requirements, either for a product, for any kind of a project, or any kind of thing they actually take on. Okay, so the business analyst, most importantly, they actually liaise with the business people. Okay, the business people, they talk business language, but as a business analyst, you need to take that business language and convert into the terms that these developers and other technical people can actually understand. Okay, if they say that they want a dashboard with let's say sales, okay, then as a business analyst, you'll be documenting about what do you mean by sales, why is it important for you to have that number, okay, and what is the calculation methodology, where do you have this data, which systems you have this data, and then once it goes to the a developer or a technical person, they can take your requirement document and then actually translate it into a technical terms, they can build up and deliver. Okay, as a business analyst, that's the skill set you're talking about. Good communication skill, stakeholder management. More importantly, look, you need to be a little more open to facilitation. A business analyst also need to be a good facilitator as well. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Mahalingam, you can ask.
Good afternoon, sir. Mahalingam here. So my question to you is, so how important is data for the growth of all this MSME businesses, small scale businesses?
Yeah, look, that's
because if you go to a normal restaurant also, they'll ask your phone number, this thing.
Correct.
So how important is for the growth, sir?
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, the MSME business, especially what I've seen in Coimbatore, they're still trying to catch up with the game. The maturity is very low in terms of MSME business. You're right. The B2C business is very, very sensitive. Even if you go and ask, go and buy something in the supermarket, like a chocolate or something. For buying one item, they ask you for your phone number, even though it's not necessary, correct? So they really want to track you, okay? So that's the unique identifier. They look at your history of how many things you've bought, they try to profile you, okay? So they know what kind of things they need to stock up for the next month, what's the frequency of a purchase. If you bought chocolate, what are the other things they can actually sell you? They look at from that perspective. The B2C business is very, very crucial. For MSME business, they need to start gathering data, okay? And when I say start gathering data, not all the data they can actually collect. In fact, they should focus on some kind of they need to have a good business strategy first, okay? And then you look at what are my business goals, okay, that I need to hit this year, not running after money all the time. Okay, money is good for the business, I understand that, but then you look at a little more bigger picture. Okay, as an MSME, what are the things I need to track? I'll give you an example. Do I need to track my supply chain? Okay, do I need to track my material delivery? Do I need to track my quality? Do I need to look at giving some data from MSME to my consumers? Okay, the B2B business. So you look at the full value chain, okay, and then they should start collecting data. When I say to start collecting data, they need to have good business systems that can actually capture this data, good transaction system to capture all this data, and then obviously encapsulate it, synthesize it, then actually share it with the right kind of stakeholders to make good decisions. Okay, as an MSME, if they need to grow, it's not about the MSME business being a lot more manufacturing focused, or I'm in poultry, or I am in foundry business, or I'm in water business, pumps business, and things like that. They should look at data as an asset. And that's the mindset they need to change and need to have. They should not look at all these things. For example, this phone is an asset, right? If you look at it, my laptop is an asset. And for an MSME, the products they produce is an asset. For example, bears or pumps, screwdrivers, anything they produce, they consider as an asset, because with an asset they sell. The product is an asset for them. They need to have a mindset where the data they actually generate is also an asset for the company. If they have that mindset, sure, then they'll think about revamping their whole business. Okay, they'll completely change their business model using data. Okay, to give an example, just in time, you probably heard about just in time, JIT. It was introduced in Japan. So they found out that the inventory cost is actually killing the business. So they said built in just in time. If I want 10 screws next minute, it will come only at that time. Okay, if you look at it, it's easy to say it than done. The reason is to deliver something on time is really, really hard. There's a lot of uncertainties around delivering things on time. But guess what? Japanese they've done it. And MSME has a good potential, in fact, an immense potential in Coimbatore or around India as well, to go into that field to generate a lot more data that's useful for the business. And then they can go into different business. Okay, they can look at new customer segment or self-value-added services, or they can actually come into new product altogether. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Charumati, you can go ahead and ask a question.
Good morning, sir. I'm Charumati. Sir, can you suggest any crash course for beginner in business analytics?
Look, unfortunately, there is a good question. Unfortunately, there isn't any. Most of the MBA, part of MBA, they do that. But having said that, there's a lot of workshops that people do. And for that might be beneficial as well in terms of that. But for an MBA student, as I said, focus on not on the technical side of things, but mostly on the business side of things. Okay, you should be very good at asking right questions, understanding the problem statement, or even understanding the problem itself. Okay, that is very good, and use the data as a tool. Okay, don't use data as that you need to have understanding about the data methodology, or what's the average, what do you mean by median, what do you mean by like this ratio and things like that. As a business level, knowledge is good enough, but use the data as a tool. Okay, if you're doing something and if the data is telling something else, understand why. Okay, I'll give you a prime example. Let's say you're driving the car, okay, and you want to go faster, okay, but your dashboard is actually telling you the brake has a lot of wear and tear and it cannot stop you. What would you do? The sensible thing is to slow down, because if you go fast, your dashboard is actually saying if you brake, you can't stop. Okay, so that's the insight you need to have as an MBA student. If you go into any field, think about that kind of mentality, that kind of mindset is very, very important. In terms of courses, I don't have any at my disposal. I'm sorry, but yeah, look, you can look at YouTube. YouTube is a good source, but again, I try to be cautious there. Only learn from experts. Otherwise, there's a lot of spam contents in YouTube. Yeah, look, they're tried in Udemy and Coursera. They are good open source tools. You can actually look at if there's any good business analytics course in there as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Dvaitya, you can ask a question.
Okay, sir. So good afternoon, sir. I'm Didya from DJME, and I have a question for you, sir. How far do you think business analysis helps the management to frame better strategy for the organization?
Yeah, sure, Didya. Look, most of the organization these days, they try to be data driven. Okay, when I say data driven, they are actually fixated with actually using data as an asset and also use the data to actually track their strategy. So as part of a business strategy, they will have some kind of a metrics. Okay, they call it as key performance metrics or sometimes business metrics they have. So that's the thing they will actually monitor, because as you probably know, a strategy means you're going from a current state to a future state. Okay, how do you map it? Using some metrics. Okay, so they are analytical in nature. They're time bound. You probably know about this SMART. Okay, methodology to actually define the key metrics. So data actually fuels that. Okay, every time, let's say there is a sales target of hitting something, using the data, it actually shows you the progress towards attaining the goal. If your company is trying to make $1 million and you are at $100,000, the more you try to sell, they look at how many sales things they actually signed, how many deals, how much money each deal is have. They culminate everything and then actually tell you this is the number for each month. They can actually see how it actually growing. Okay, and that's why they actually track the progress of your business strategy. So in terms of coming up, revamping the strategy, they look at the historical capabilities of the organization. Hey, they use the data to actually understand where they actually didn't do well in actually attaining the last year's strategy. Okay, then they actually use the data to actually future-proof their the next strategy. Okay, that's where the company is actually using it. There's a good framework called OKR. OKR. I'll just put it on the chat. It is pioneered by Google, and that is a completely driven business strategy. You can actually look it up. It's open source. It is available from Google.
Thank you, Divitya. Yes, Nikhilesh, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. It's there in chat. If you wish, you can unmute and ask, Nikhilesh.
So,
yes,
good
Nikhilesh.
morning, sir. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Nikhilesh Madhav, pursuing my MBA at DJME, and my question is, sir, please share the most challenging campaign you have worked on, sir.
Sorry, challenging
campaign, sir. He's asking.
Campaign. Oh, the campaign. Look, the challenging campaign. Quite interesting. So, look, some of them are very specific to the current employers. I can't disclose anything, but I'll give you a bit of a generic thing that I worked with a non-profit organization. So, I used to be in a board of an organization called GovHack, which is an open source or which is an open community for hackathon based on open data. Okay, and one of the campaign that we ran was how do we reach a rural community in Australia, okay, so that they are actually aware of what do you mean by data, what do you mean by open data and things like that. So we actually ran a lot of campaigns around reaching the people, reaching those very granular, like geographic areas in Australia. So there's this lot of data we actually took it for our disposal. There's a lot of data we analyzed, and we went after a lot of influences, and we used a lot of social media to actually reach those communities. Okay, this is all completely driven by data. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me answer one of the questions in the chat as well. There's one question on data analyst and data encryption. I can actually tell you. So for data analyst, as an MBA student, do you really want to become a data analyst? So that's the first question I'll ask you, because data analyst is somebody you need to have a lot of strong mathematical foundation. If you have a strong mathematical foundation, go into the data analysis field, because it's all algorithms and the numbers. Okay. The key requirement to become a data analyst is you should be very good at the foundational mathematics, probability, statistics, advanced statistics, algorithm development, programming. Okay, so those are the skill set I'm looking at for a data analyst there.
Yes.
So, okay, so the next question, sorry, sir, before there's one more thing on the chat, I'll answer that. Social media apps says that our data is encrypted, even they can't access it. How is it possible? Okay, that's a very good question. It involves encryption. Okay, there's a technology in mathematics they call encryption, and it is true. Okay, I'll give an example of that so that you actually understand that. You probably know passwords, correct? Everybody uses password. So you have accounts to different social media, your Gmail, all the stuff. But the password is the same. Let's say you want to go into LinkedIn, you have one password. Okay, and somehow your neighbor gets hold of that password. What will they do? They'll log in and then access your records, correct? That is not safe, correct? Having one password for all your login is actually a bad idea, okay? And it is not good for sharing secrets, okay? Let's say I have a door and has access to the secrets, and there's a lock and there's a key. If I have one key, and if somebody makes a duplicate key, guess what? They can also come in and open up and then get my secrets. It is not safe. And these days, the companies, they actually come up with a lot more sophisticated kind of a encryption algorithm. Okay, so to open a lock, okay, there's a two-step process. They call it private key and public key. Okay, with one key, you can actually come and I authenticate that key. Then you can actually go and access that. Okay, you will hold that public key, sorry, your private key, and the companies will hold the public key. Okay, so that's how all this encryption technology actually works. And your key is actually stored in a local device. The moment you delete anything, it's all gone, and it's all stored in a secure location where nobody can actually access it. Okay, so that's why when they say that the communication is encrypted, nobody can come and throw in a man-in-middle attack, or they can actually hack into your chats and things like that. Okay, and it's a lot more technical in nature, but I'm just giving you the high-level spin. Sure. Any other questions, or over to you?
Selva, I do have a question.
Yes.
Of course, excellent presentation. So nice listening to you for the last 1 hour, Selva. A lot of takeaways. Selva, you were talking about the convenience, okay, the comfort, the time saving, the ultimate end user or the consumer enjoys out of this. Okay, so I am looking at it from the end user's perspective, or the ultimate consumers or the end user's perspective. So just for the sake of availing all these benefits, like cost saving or time saving or comfort or whatsoever, are we giving away so many things to the public domain?
Okay, my question to you is why not? Why not? So I had a lot of discussion with one of my friend in Australia. I'm actually a bit of a data skeptic as well. Like, I don't want to give data unless it's necessary or sufficient.
Okay.
And a lot of people these days, they take privacy for granted.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. So many people, especially these millennials, the Gen Z you're talking about, they're actually happy with sharing data. They're actually not seeing any problem of sharing their like private information, like
that's right,
address and everything. So as a consumer, I would argue there's two facets to it. The first one is, if I'm actually giving data that is minimal for getting that service or availing that thing, sure, I can actually do. But where it actually gets a little bit scary is that is when the company is trying to overuse data and then target us. Okay. The prime example I can actually give you is you sign up for something and they'll keep sending you SMSs, WhatsApp messages, emails.
Exactly.
They try to pull you in so that they
Exactly.
can spend more.
Exactly.
Which is where you got to draw the line.
Okay. Sorry to intervene. Say one is voluntarily giving the data to the company, okay, or to somebody else, okay, for the sake of availing all those benefits and other things.
Yes.
The second one, observing what am I doing. Say for example, Google once in a month or once in 6 months, it tells me these are all the places where you have gone for the last 6 months. Okay, and this is the kilometer which you have traveled. Okay, so that happens without my knowledge. That happens without my acceptance or whatsoever.
So it actually happens with, look, when you signed up for a Google service, you have the terms and services. It is it's all this fine print.
We don't look at all the finer prints. Am I right?
Correct. And guess what? Most of the consumers are, especially, for example, all my relatives, they have a Facebook account, and if you look at their privacy setting, everything is open.
That's right.
Because they don't know how to change all these things. And many companies takes advantage of these things. Because educating a customer is a bit of a long shot for them. If you go and educate the consumers, they will probably share less data with you.
Yeah.
So it's all about going after those people who are very open. They have no knowledge about how to use technology, but they just use it for taking things. And they trust these companies for some of these things. And
so are we becoming vulnerable?
We are to some extent.
More vulnerable. Huh?
We are. Guess what? There's no escape from it, sir. The data, everything you look at it is all fine for us.
Right. So
if you go and look at the billboard, and if you look at the Coke is, why is it red color? There is a scientific approach to that.
Yeah.
There is.
That's right.
Yeah, we are vulnerable, and the companies try to harvest more data from us.
Exactly. So more ignorance, more vulnerable.
Correct. The only way to come out from this is by educating all the customers.
Yeah.
And sharing less data on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Selva. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Sir, we have 2 more questions. Shall we take it up?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, Prabhu sir, you can go ahead. You should unmute yourself. Yes.
Good afternoon, Dr. Selvaraaju. It's a very informative session. I think I am audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
You're audible, sir.
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Prabhu Shankar, professor at DG Academy. So my question is similar to what our directors are asked. See, social medias, they're not supposed to sell our data, right? Like Facebook and Google, but they can use it to target advertisements. That is, normally they used to do it. Even music apps like Spotify used to track all our behavior and gives different choices, right? Like a combination of different musics based on the composer or based on the singer's choices, right?
Correct.
So that is fine. Whatever the website we visit, they used to collect some data, and based on their our browsing behavior or shopping behavior, they used to give the promotional offers, coupon codes, etc. But how do other companies where we have not visited, right? Somewhere they collect the data and used to send mails and used to make calls. So how it happens? Is there any data selling happening, as we have come across so many media reports? And that is my first question. And in the recent past, we heard about Data Privacy Act, right? So is there any Data Privacy Act which ensures the security of our information or confidentiality of personal data?
Yeah, sure. So thank you very much. I'll first answer your first question. If you're talking about you've subscribed for one services, but somehow you get a call from other company which you never heard of and say, sir, you're so and so, we are interested in this. It actually happens. When you sign up for some companies and products, there's a fine print. They will say, by agreeing to using our products or services, we might sell your data to a third party, or we might share your data with some third party providers. That's the fine print they will do. And there are companies out there, they are called data aggregators, and it is a big business. Okay, collecting the data and selling the data is a big business in this digital age. They call data aggregators. If you put data aggregator companies, there's a lot of companies that will come out there. I won't name any, but there are companies. For example, what these data aggregators will do is, let's say you go and subscribe for one company, okay, one product. They will collect the data and then sell it to this third party. Let's say you go and subscribe to another product or services, okay. They will also sell this data to this company. So you have two different data of you coming from using two different services, but then there is no fingerprinting, okay. So they wouldn't know whether that is you. This data aggregator company, what they'll do is they look at all this footprints, okay, and they'll say, you know what, that footprint looked like Selva. Oh, this footprint also looks like Selva. They combine the data, and then they'll build a profile on you. So they know which restaurant you go, which food you ate from the restaurant business that shared the data about you with that company. They will go to Google and they'll say, oh, you actually traveled to the place. Guess what? I have Google records showing that the GPS location. Great. And then you go and visit any companies like tamilmatrimonial.com. Oh, Selva likes this kind of profile based on the cookies. Okay. And guess what? They've identified me. Okay. Once they have this digital footprint, okay, this footprint or this fingerprinting will not change for you. Okay, if you log in from your desktop PC and tomorrow you go to US and then log in via an iPad, guess what? They will identify you. Very, very easy. You can't run away from it. And the only way from stop doing that is stop sharing minimal data. In fact, if you don't want to use their services, don't use it. It needs a lot more educational from the consumers to stop sharing a lot of data. Okay. In fact, there's a famous historian who actually wrote a book about Homo sapiens. His name is called Yuval Noah Harari, and he actually terms all these third countries or developing countries as data colonies. Okay. See, they harvest our data. They come and pull all the data from us, and they go and build these big companies. Algorithms dictate the world. Guess what? Okay. When you type something in Google, your search result is actually personalized and tailored for you. If you go and use the same term in some other country, the results will be different. Okay. So algorithm, guess what? That runs the world. Okay. There's no way running from it. I hope I answered your first question on data aggregation. Let me go into this data privacy issues. The first big organization around the world that actually took this data privacy to the heart and actually regulated this market is the European Union. Okay, the European Union, they have this act called GDPR. Okay, and GDPR, which stands for General Data Privacy Regulation, that mandates all the companies to adhere to their privacy principles and regulation. And they have nicely written a lot of things. For example, if you're a European Union, if you're doing business with European countries, European Union countries, the data of the European customers should reside only in Europe. So there's a data sovereignty. Okay, so if they want, they can go to any. They can actually, the Supreme Court actually issue a subpoena. They can actually go and then confiscate all their servers, all the data. So the data never leaves their soil. So that's the first thing. And everything has to be encrypted, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing is you need to get consensus from the consumer on what data you collect. Very, very powerful. Right now, you use Facebook. They won't tell you that, hey, I collect your location data. I collect your pictures. If you tag someone, I also take your, like the facial footprint of your father, mother, sister. People know that. People are sort of taken for granted. And GDPR is GDPR is the first regulation in the world that sets the precedence for this. Okay, and if you look at it, there is in California they have CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, and in Australia they're also trying to legislate a few things. Korea also trying to do something. Canada also have similar. Many countries are having similar thing. I'm not sure about the current structure in the government of India perspective, but I believe that the consumers need to be educated on this. Because we give all these phones to our kids and we don't know what they actually use. And guess what? They're actually sending data to, and the Google and Facebook, they know that there's some kid actually accessing, that's not you. And they start trying to fingerprint them. In the future, it's affect their future. Okay. So it's all with their profiles. If they know about you, what is the next thing they know? They will do. They will manipulate you. Very typical thing that happens in Cambridge Analytica scandal, where in US election, they had about a lot of points on voter profile, and they manipulate people to change things. Okay, and I don't know whether it is right or wrong. I'll give it to the lawmakers to decide that. But from the consumer perspective, do you want to be manipulated? Yeah, it's by an algorithm. Okay, it's worse. You give a target, and the algorithm will try 1,000 different ways to attain the target. Okay, if you are a dosa eater and you have this profile, and if the company is saying that you have to be an idli eater, they'll come up with the ways to be change your food.
That's right.
Habits.
That's right.
Yeah. Look, I'm just giving it a more behavioral style, but they can actually sow seed in your mental model.
Yeah.
Okay, so that unconsciously you change. And they will show ads, everything that actually aligns with that kind of a behavior, and ultimately you change. And they know how to track that. It is very, very vicious in nature. So I think the consumers need to be educated. Every time you share, make sure you share it with intention. You know what kind of data you share and what kind of implication you are getting as well. You have to be, as a consumer, you got to be very, very aware of that.
Well explained, Selva. It looks like ultimately it leads to a situation where we are getting dictated by somebody else on each and everything.
Yeah, that's
what should I eat? What should I see? Where should I go? Okay, all these things are getting dictated by an unknown person.
Absolutely. You just notice, you just think about it, and Amazon will deliver it to you in the future.
Yeah, true. Possible.
And guess what? The money will be delivered from your credit card.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hemchand, you can ask a question.
One last question. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir. Hemchand.
Myself, Hemchand from DJ Academy.
Yeah.
So, what kind of suggestion can a business analytics expert can render to the organization?
What kind of look the way a business analyst or business analytics actually helping you is providing that strategic insight. Okay, if they're doing some long shot, what are the things that the business need to be careful about? Okay, so that's a good kind of input they can actually give. And helping them to make a scientific data-driven approach. Okay, so it's not based on gut feeling or hunch. You are actually making the right decisions using the right data you have at the point. Okay, so look, if you look at data, we make measurement for one reason, to reduce our uncertainty. Okay, as a business analyst, that's what your goal should be. If the business is trying to do something where they have no clue, you try to reduce their uncertainty by providing some kind of an evidence. Okay, so that's far more important. That's one. The second one, in terms of delivery, if they're actually trying to do something in the business delivery, what are the tactical things the companies can actually change? Okay, so that's the second thing they can actually do. The third main thing the business analyst analytics or analysis should give is building that foundational capability for an organization. Let me give an example. If you go into a shop, let's say a food truck, okay, which is getting popular in Coimbatore. If you look at food truck, it's a service delivery business, and let's say they are trying to make dosa, sell hamburgers or sandwiches and things like that. You look at the data and you say, one of the foundational capability that's missing is they don't have a microwave. They outsource it, or they don't have a some kind of a logistic supply chain that is completely integrated. Think about building that kind of a foundational capability. Okay, and the foundational capabilities are very essential for the business to sustain over years. Okay, as a business analyst, focus on your effort getting that kind of capability built for an organization. It's an amazing contribution you can make to an organization on that, building foundational or organizational capabilities. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So there are no more questions, sir. Shall we wrap it up, sir?
We can. Yeah.
So thank you indeed. It was a wonderful and informative session. Just I spent some time in sales, sir, where we used to attend review meetings by writing on a OHP sheet, and we used to present. Then subsequently we came to slide presentations. During those times, whatever we present to our bosses, they'll negotiate on that only. Of late, once data emerged, so when we go and present something, they have something to substantiate whether what we are presenting is right or wrong. From that time, review meetings have become a nightmare. I was asking this data to attrition.
These days, no longer slide presentations, sir. These days, everybody's moving to dashboards. There's no human in the loop. Everything is completely automated. They see numbers as things happen.
That's it. Yes. Thank you, sir. So now let me call Hemchand, our final MBA student, to propose the vote of thanks. Hemchand?
Yeah, it's coming.
Yes.
A warm good afternoon to our respected speaker, director, teachers, and my dear friends. It's my privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. Thanks to the Almighty for blessing us in order to organize an insightful session with the respected dignity. On my behalf, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to our speaker, Dr. Selvaraaju Murugesan, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace this occasion. Thank you, sir, for a thought-provoking and interesting session. I wish to express my gratitude to our director, Dr. A.G.V. Narayanan, for providing encouragement and support. I extend my sincere thanks to the teaching and non-teaching staff for organizing the event. I also thank the students of DJME and students from other institutions and participants from industry for attending today's Corporate Connect. Thank you all and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Selva. Once again, sorry we couldn't get you to our campus because of the prevailing scenario. So we are definitely looking forward to your physical visit once we get back to good old days. Okay, thank you very much, Selva. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, sir.